Imagine you're a Roman senator. You've spent 20 years climbing the political ladder. You own 3 estates. You wear a toga that costs more than most people's houses. You make decisions that affect 50 million people across the largest empire on Earth. You are at the absolute top of the food chain. And then one afternoon, your boss, the Emperor of Rome, pulls you aside and tells you he's promoting your newest colleague to one of the most powerful jobs in the entire empire. Who, you ask? He points across the room. A horse. A horse who at that very moment is eating hay out of an ivory feeding dish carried by a servant whose entire job is to hold the hay. Welcome to the reign of Caligula and the story of his favorite horse, Incitatus, the most powerful 4-legged politician in human history. Quick recap for anyone who missed last week's video. The guy who decided to put a horse in government was the Roman Emperor Caligula. Yes, the same Caligula who once tried to declare war on the ocean. Same guy. Same year. Roughly the same level of decision-making. But where the ocean thing was Caligula being weird in private, the horse thing was Caligula being weird in public, in front of the Senate. On purpose. Was he genuinely insane, or was he the most savage political troll in Roman history? Quick context that's going to matter in a minute. The Roman Senate at this point had existed for almost 500 years. It was older than the empire itself. It was a body of around 600 extremely wealthy, extremely connected aristocrats who had actually run Rome for generations. Emperors were technically in charge, but senators wrote the laws. They controlled the money. They held real political power. Caligula, on the other hand, was 27 years old. He'd been emperor for less than 2 years. And the Senate had spent most of those 2 years quietly hoping he'd be easy to manipulate. He was not. Here's a quick taste of what else Caligula was doing during this exact period, just so you understand what level of normal Tuesday we're talking about. He had a temple built to worship himself, with actual priests. People had to come pray to a statue of him, while he was still alive, sitting on the throne like a mile away. He took his 3 sisters and made them official priestesses of his own cult, which is creepy in like 6 different ways. He built a giant naval ship just for parties, like a floating mansion, with gardens and running hot water for one guy to party on. He executed people for having an unpleasant face, being too tall, and in one famous case, looking at him during a play. So when this man said, "I'm thinking about making my horse a consul," you can understand why nobody in the Senate was in a rush to argue. Meet Incitatus. In Latin, that means swift or at full gallop. Cool name. Honestly, he wasn't just any horse. Incitatus was a champion racehorse from the Green Faction 1 of Rome's 4 major chariot racing teams. Think of it like he was a famous athlete, already well-known, already valuable, already winning races at the Circus Maximus in front of crowds of 150,000 people. But when Caligula took a liking to him, his life got a significant upgrade. According to the Roman historian Suetonius, Incitatus had an ivory stall, a jeweled collar, a marble stable, and his own personal staff of servants. How many servants? The sources aren't perfectly clear, but at least 18 people are documented as working in some capacity for the horse. Grooms, cooks, cleaners, trainers, a guy whose entire job was to mix the horse's breakfast. And guess what he had for breakfast? Caligula fed Incitatus oats mixed with gold flakes. Yes, actual gold dust. In his oats. Every single morning. Imagine somewhere in Rome, every morning, a guy's entire job was to mix gold dust into a horse's breakfast. That was his career. He probably had a title. He probably had to apply for the position. He probably described himself as senior nutrition specialist at parties. And it gets better. Incitatus was reportedly invited to dinner parties. Real dinner parties. He had assigned seating. The emperor would toast him during dinner. Conversations were held in his presence. The menu? The horse was being served meat dishes, cakes, and wine. Yes. Wine mixed into a bowl with his oats. A horse eating cake and drinking wine at a dinner party with senators. That happened. Caligula reportedly forced senators and high-ranking officials to attend these dinners, to dine with the horse, to honor it, to bring it gifts. If you didn't show up or didn't show enough respect, the emperor would notice. And the emperor noticing you in Caligula's Rome was not a good thing. There are documented cases of senators being executed for things as small as not laughing loud enough at one of Caligula's jokes. So they showed up. They brought presents. They toasted the horse. They smiled. And here's where it gets really unhinged. Caligula was at one point planning to give Incitatus a wife, a mare, named Penelope, specifically chosen to be the horse's spouse, with a wedding ceremony. Whether that wedding actually happened is debated. Some sources say it did. Some say Caligula was killed before the planning got that far. But the fact that this was even being seriously discussed in the imperial court, that tells you everything you need to know about what it was like to work for this guy. Now we get to the famous part. According to the historical record, Caligula announced that he intended to make Incitatus a consul. There were only 2 consuls in Rome at a time. They commanded armies, presided over the Senate, and held the highest civilian authority beneath the emperor. To qualify, you needed elite family connections, decades of political experience, immense wealth, and at minimum to be human. Incitatus checked none of those boxes. Caligula wanted his horse to hold one of the most powerful offices in the empire. And nobody could say no. The senators listened, nodded, probably applauded. Because people who got on Caligula's bad side had a habit of ending up dead. He once exiled a senator, changed his mind, and had him executed on the ship carrying him away. That was the level of unpredictability involved. So when the emperor said horse for consul, the Senate said, great idea. Some accounts claim senators debated policy in front of the horse's marble stall. Others report gifts, visits, and attempts to befriend Incitatus in hopes of gaining favor with the emperor. One senator allegedly spent the equivalent of $50,000 on a gift for the horse and was promoted soon afterward. A horse became a career strategy. Was he joking? There are 2 camps. Camp 1, Caligula had lost his mind. After a severe illness early in his reign, he emerged believing himself divine, talking to the moon, attacking the sea, executing relatives, and making bizarre military decisions. The horse was just another symptom. Camp 2. Caligula was a genius-level troll. He despised the Senate. His father likely died by poisoning, his brothers were killed, and his mother was exiled and starved. The Senate represented a system that had destroyed his family. Under this view, elevating a horse wasn't insanity, it was an insult. Caligula was effectively saying, your prestigious office could be filled by livestock. The senators were forced to participate in the joke. They had to honor the horse, praise the idea, and in doing so publicly admit how powerless they were. Most modern historians lean toward Camp 2, but with an asterisk. Our main sources, especially Suetonius and Cassius Dio, wrote 200 years later and had reasons to exaggerate. The crazier Caligula sounded, the better later emperors looked. So the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Maybe Caligula joked about making Incitatus consul, maybe he was half serious. The Senate found it humiliating, and later writers turned it into legend. But the things we do trust, the marble stall, gold oats, ivory feeding dish, dinner parties, 18-person staff, and wedding plans appear to have been real. Whether or not the horse officially became a senator almost doesn't matter. Functionally, it had more influence than many men who had spent their lives in government. What happened to the horse? Caligula didn't survive long. He was stabbed to death by the Praetorian Guard. His wife and infant daughter were killed shortly afterward. Incitatus, however, seems to have done fine. The new emperor, Claudius, reversed many of Caligula's excesses, but there is no record of the horse being killed, demoted, or removed. Some accounts even suggest parts of its staff remained employed. Most historians believe Incitatus simply lived out his days in luxury until dying of natural causes. In a strange way, the horse outlived the emperor. The empire functioned more smoothly after Caligula than during his rule, which may be history's only emperor-horse rivalry. And the horse won. The takeaway, the story of Incitatus, reminds us that history is often stranger than we imagine. We picture togas, marble halls, and solemn debates shaping civilization. Then we discover the most powerful empire on earth employed a man whose full-time job was sprinkling gold on horse food. Make your horse a senator became a lasting political insult for appointing unqualified people to important jobs. 2,000 years later, the joke still works. Ancient people were people, petty, funny, weird, and perfectly capable of taking a joke too far. For at least a few years, the Roman Empire was being managed with at least one senior figure chewing grass. And honestly, looking at modern politics, maybe that's not as crazy as it sounds. If you enjoyed the video, check out this one. And subscribe if you'd let a horse run your government. Spoiler, it might do a better job.